Colour is often used in films to make a scene resonate emotionally or to evoke a certain feeling in us as the audience. For this 25-part video series, I have analysed every James Bond film to find examples where colour choices might have been made deliberately by Bond directors or cinematographers to achieve these effects. A fair warning, since 8 out of the 15 cinematographers have sadly passed away, and so have 5 of the 13 directors, much of my analysis will be hypothetical. This is definitely nerd territory, so let's dig in. Let's look at the second Bond film from Russia with Love, which differs significantly from its predecessor Dr. No when it comes to bright, vibrant colours. When you now look to the right side of my image above, I can show you the saturation chart of From Russia with Love. So this is the entire film in screenshots. There are about 900 screenshots for the 1 hour and 55 runtime, and you can see in the area between 0 and 10 on the saturation chart there are a lot of dark scenes here. And when we now compare this chart with Dr. No, here you can see Dr. No, and now I will overlay From Russia with Love. As confusing as this image might seem, it shows the second Bond film is a lot darker. There are more scenes set at nighttime or in dark environments. For example, the opening sequence is set at nighttime. Here you have it. That's the opening sequence with the impersonator of Bond and Red Grant there. It's all set at nighttime. So this makes the opening of the film very dark, obviously. Then you have the main title sequence and the projections on the women's faces and the dancers and all of these colors popping up. But overall, it is a dark scene. Let's have a look at that here. You can see it's all mainly black and a bit of brown hues. And the only color that you really get is from the text on the screen. Then you have a big series of dark scenes starting around the 34-minute mark, lasting for a good 17 minutes until Bond switches on the light in his hotel room. And in between that, within these 17 minutes, are the Istanbul cistern scenes that you see here. Then there is the gypsy camp and the assassination of Krylenko. All of that happens pretty much in the dark. Continuing from that, the scenes in the Hagia Sophia in the mosque, also rather dark. Same goes for everything on board the Orient Express. Of course, there you have a bit of color. You have browns, you have shades of blue. I will go into that later. But most of it is at night. When the train stops at a station, it often stops there at night time. But when we look back at the saturation chart, I can make it a bit larger, I think. Let me see. So when we go to the end of the film, the saturation goes up. That's the boat chase and the Venice scenes. And there is more saturation in the final half of the film than in Dr. No. Now, let's switch to the screenshots. Here is the screenshot overview on which this analysis is based on. So when I scroll down from that, I can make it a little bit bigger so you can see it better. Of course, it starts with a gun barrel, then the opening sequence, which is dark, and you can see the synergy between light and dark. And there is a lot of dark. This is the gypsy camp here, then the assassination of Krylenko. The scene in Bond's hotel room with Tatiana is also at nighttime. Then we have the scenes on board the Orient Express. A lot of dark wood. The stops at the stations, they are dark. And then comes the fight between Bond and Red Grant, also pretty much in the dark. And then it gets lighter. Comes the chase with the helicopter, the boat chase, and the Venice scenes. And finally, we are at the end. This in itself light and dark interplaying with each other is a good representation of the film's story and genre. It's a spy thriller. For many of us, it's one of the best of the entire Bond series. A fight of good versus evil, light versus dark. And cinematographer Ted Moore and director Terence Young really masterfully played with lighting in this film, creating a very gloomy atmosphere in which the agents operate. This does not mean that the film has less color than its predecessor, Doctor No. When we now look at the 3D color space, this is the 3D color space, and I can turn it in pretty much every direction. And I'll zoom in so that we can see it better. Oh, that's a bit too much. There is almost as much bright red as in Doctor No, but significantly less blue. And what the color space does is it tells us how often a color appears throughout the film in its varying hues. So here are both color spaces in comparison. On the left you have Doctor No, which had a much wider distribution of color, whereas From Russia with Love on the right is toned down in almost all primary colors. Now we switch into the color palette, the colorimetry. Starting with this scene, but it's not really important. We can look at some scenes with more detail and see if certain colors were used to achieve an effect on us as the audience. Let's start with the 8-minute and 30 mark, in which we first see Blofeld's legendary white Turkish Angora or Persian cat. Here it is. So there is, let me turn the volume down. That's the scene on the boat with Klebb, and here you have Blofeld's cat. Due to the nature of how the film was shot, the fur of the cat does not appear as white in the color palette, but as a gray tone. You can see that here on the right side. However, we accept the cat to be white, which makes it automatically uncommon. White cats are very rare. They only make up 5% of the general cat population. They are associated with purity, which is of little use when describing Blofeld's character. But having just spoken about light and dark, it would be logical to go into the direction of superstition, where white stands for good and black stands for bad. But we know right away that Blofeld is the villain, although he did not have a cat in the novels. So this was a decision by the filmmakers to give him a cat. And giving him this cat is an odd choice, just because it's white. But now consider this. In the United Kingdom, where the film was made, seeing white cats means that trouble is ahead. White cats are thought to be able to hold a grudge for years, and it's considered extremely unwise to offend or annoy a white cat. Same would be true for Blofeld, who does hold a grudge against Bond, but this is only revealed in great detail in Spectre, which is 52 years after From Russia with Love. Putting that aside, secondly, Blofeld is known to not tolerate failure in his organization, so hence he is annoyed when things are not going his way. It's a stretch with a cat, but it's a nice one. In the same scene, the choice of casting German actress Lotte Lenya, here she is another interesting aspect. Lenya has fiery red hair. She had fiery red hair, and almost like the character in Ian Fleming's novel, where her hair was described as orange. You wouldn't think much of it at first, but red hair is associated with power. That's why many superheroes have red hair. Think of X-Men's Jean Grey or Mystique, as well as Black Widow and Batgirl, if you like. But that's little help with Rosa Klebb. She's not a superhero. In art, however, red hair is often associated with deviousness, the quality of being dishonest or being able to trick people, but often also being clever and successful. Rosa Klebb more or less fits that description, although she's not successful in the end, but, well, let's go to location, to Istanbul, where there is also another aspect of light and dark. Most of the scenes set in Istanbul, we are confronted with a wide array of greys and browns in various hues. It starts at the airport here, and partly this is due to the natural look of the buildings in the city. And again, I said in the beginning, the play with shadow and light. And there is a particular shot, I'm trying to find it, of actor Hasan Ceylan. I just need to find it. There it is. Look at this shot, and look at the color palette on the right. Hasan Ceylan, here in the picture, playing a foreign agent. And the concentration of grays in this image is so prominent that the color of his face and hands doesn't even appear as significant in the color palette. It is not displayed. And when you look at this sort of bullseye thing here, I can zoom in here as well. This is the distribution of the grays that we have in that scene, whether it's foreground or background. The color of his hands and face practically disappears. And this is true for a lot of shots in Istanbul. When we move to the middle of the film, I just have to see what kind of mark I set myself here. Oh yeah, it's the scene with Bond and Tatiana on the boat, where she speaks into his recording machine. Here you have it. There is something interesting happening, and this is the last thought for this video, because there are not many more prominent colors sticking out where I thought they have a message, but I think this one actually does. Tatiana is wearing a light blue headscarf. This is a peaceful and a calming color associated with trustworthiness and reliability, but whether it is light or dark, blue, among other things, represents freedom. Something that Tatiana might want to gain from her mission. She's fascinated by Western culture and maybe desires an escape route out of this strict Soviet construct that she's in. And this becomes particularly evident in the later scenes aboard the Orient Express, where she poses as Bond's wife. So maybe the color of her headscarf was deliberately picked by the filmmakers to represent her desire for freedom. That's what my thought was. And now comes the interesting thing. Let's skip to the Orient Express scenes. Bond is giving her this nightgown, which is also blue. It's a light shade of blue. And just a moment later, she picks out of the suitcase another nightgown, which is also in a light blue color. You can see that quite clearly here. Also in the color palette. It's not very prominent, but it's there. And when she says she will wear this in Piccadilly, she says it right in this scene, I feel somehow confirmed in my theory that blue does indeed represent the freedom that she seeks. And in fact, when you look at the whole Orient Express scenes, everything Tatiana wears on the train is in a shade of blue, except her overcoat. She also wears that later during the boat chase, but then she has a shaded brown color vest. But look at the dinner scene here. She then switches into a pullover right here. There she's wearing a pullover. And look at the color palette. It's either the shade on the right side or somewhere in the middle. But this is definitely a light shade of blue. Yeah. Let's look at the color space. We can look at the color space of that scene. Let me just check. So this is the color space of just this scene. So you have the browns, that is the background, obviously. You have sort of like gold tones, that's her hair. And then you have this whole thing going upwards of these light blue shades. This is what she's wearing. So it's just a thought, but it's a big thing given how long she is wearing shades of blue, which starts on the boat and then continues on the Orient Express. Her dress only changes when they are in Venice in the hotel room. Then she wears something completely else, but also very elegant. With that thought, I'd like to conclude color analysis of From Russia with Love, and we'll begin work on the next adventure in the series, which is Goldfinger. Let me guess what the prominent color of that is. It's probably gold. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of The Colors of 007. Thank you for watching and have a great day.